Fight fans, welcome to the PBC Podcast, brought to you by Premier Boxing Champions with your host, Kenneth Buhari and Michael Rosenthal.
Welcome, everyone, to the PBC Podcast. I'm Kenneth Buhari.
I'm Michael Rosenthal, editor of USA Today's Boxing Junkie.
We want to thank you all for joining us this week. If you found us on YouTube or your favorite podcast platform, be sure to like and subscribe. Today, joining us is Chris Primetime Colbert. Plus, we're going to recap all of last weekend's action and look ahead to this Saturday. But first things first, we want to say our thoughts and our prayers are with Tiger Woods, who suffered a serious single car accident earlier on today. Tiger is in surgery, so just sending him well wishes as well as his family.
Yeah, I watch golf, and Tiger Woods just changed the sport, especially when he was in his prime. It's an exaggeration to say I idolize the guy, but I was just a big fan, huge fan of Tiger Woods. So I'm really kind of bummed right now. It looks like he's gonna be, he's going to be fine in terms of his life, but God knows how this is going to impact his golf career. When you first hear it, you hear news that he's been in an accident and you start thinking bad thoughts. Like it took me right back to Kobe when I heard that he'd been in that, it's a plane crash. Obviously it's a different thing, but you kind of get the same feeling. You don't know what the next news item is going to be, that kind of thing. So I'm grateful that he's going to survive this. Still, it's a bummer. It's sad.
Yeah, it is. But like you said, the main thing is that he'll be okay. And, that's something that we can all be thankful for, particularly thinking about his children and so forth. As far as his golf career, he battled so much to come back and, to win the Masters like he did a couple years ago was pretty impressive. So I don't doubt that he's capable of doing it once more and coming back. But let's see what happens. First things first, his health. We hope that continues to go well and that he makes a complete and full recovery. And with that, we're going to get right back into boxing and kick things off with the PBC Fight of the Week. This Saturday, February 27th, FOX PBC Fight Night is back on Fox and Fox Deportes beginning at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. In the main event, two-time 168-pound world champion Anthony the Dog Dirrell takes on Kyrone Shut It Down Davis, the 12-round WBC super middleweight world title eliminator. Mike, let's start with the essentials.
Okay, here we go. Dirrell 33-2-1, 24 knockouts. Davis is 15-2, 6 KOs. They're both 4-1 with one knockout in their last 5 fights. Dirrell last fought against David Benavidez. He was stopped in 9, at least in part because of the bad cut that he had. That was September of 2019. Davis last fought January of last year, so it'll be more than a year for him too. Antonio Todd, he stopped Antonio Todd in 4 rounds. Dirrell 67% knockout ratio, Davis 35. Dirrell 159 rounds, Davis 88. Dirrell's 36, Davis 10 years younger, he's 26. Dirrell turned pro in 2005, Davis 2014. They both fight from an orthodox stance. Dirrell's actually taller than people might realize. He's 6'2", at least according to BoxRec. Davis is 5'10". Dirrell has a 74.5-inch reach. Davis 73. Dirrell is from Flint, Michigan, and Davis is from Wilmington, Delaware.
Well, let's dig into Davis a little more. It sounds like it's youth versus experience. Davis, obviously, sizable underdog going in. What can you tell us about him?
Well, he started boxing when he was 8 years old. So he's been doing this a long, long time. He had a good, substantial amateur career, which means that he has good fundamentals. He knows how to box. He works with one of the top trainers, Stephen Breadman Edwards. He isn't much of a puncher, as his record might indicate, but that doesn't mean he isn't afraid to stand and fight. The guy fights. Yeah. It's not like he dances and runs around. He actually fights. And he actually forgets his defense sometimes, which isn't necessarily a good thing all the time. overall, this guy's he's a good fighter. This is a big step up, but he's a good fighter.
Yeah, and I think, a lot of people are looking at it he's fought at 154 and 160 most of his career, but he competed at 165 pounds in the amateurs. He was an Olympic alternate, 2012 Olympic alternate. So the skill is certainly there. And as he mentioned on the conference call a week ago, he thinks people are going to be surprised at his size. He's shown flashes as a pro. He's never quite put it together. We'll see if he can against Dirrell. Now, the last time we saw Dirrell, as you mentioned, was against David Benavidez. Dirrell lost his WBC 168-pound strap that night by 9th round TKO. Now, he suffered a bad cut in the 6th round of that bout. He contends that he was winning up until that cut occurred. In your opinion, would the fight have turned out differently if he hadn't sustained that cut?
Well, obviously, it's hard to say. You have to think that the cut, which was a pretty bad cut, played at least somewhat of a role in his performance. But honestly, I thought Benavidez was really starting to impose himself physically on him more and more as the fight went on. I don't know whether Benavidez would have scored a knockout. He might have. But I think he would have won clearly one way or another. It's sort of like just more or less a following the pattern and a gut feeling. Dirrell certainly was competitive. There's no question about that. Benavidez is just a tough opponent.
He is, and no shame in losing to him.
Right.
Dirrell was doing well up until that cut occurred, but it's so hard to predict what would have happened if it hadn't happened. As you mentioned, Benavidez was doing his thing up until that point. But now Dirrell has a chance in a world title eliminator to perhaps get another opportunity at his title going up against Kyrone Davis. Who are you picking?
I give Davis a chance in this fight because, as I said, I think he's just a capable all-around fighter with experience too, if you consider his amateur background. This is a tough assignment for him, though. Dirrell is an accomplished fighter who's still good, in my opinion, at what he does. He's no joke, as Benavidez would tell you. On top of that, you mentioned the thing about the weight he fought at, heavier as an amateur, but he's never fought at this weight as a professional. This is his first time as a professional fighting at 168. So on top of everything else, Dirrell is bigger than Davis.
Right.
So I guess he'll have the advantage of making weight more easily, which most guys do. Obviously, when they move up, they don't have to taper as much. But again, I think he's going to be the smaller guy. So Davis is good, but he gives up both size and experience to a really good fighter. If Dirrell can avoid getting cut badly like he has in the last few fights, right?
Yeah.
I think he either outpoints Davis or he stops him late.
Yeah, that's a big factor that a lot of people are overlooking. I think this is a very dangerous fight for Davis early on. You mentioned that he hasn't fought at 168 before as a professional. Now he's going up against a skilled, hard hitter, eating shots that he's never felt the likes of under the lights as a professional before. And Dirrell, I know, is going to be throwing some bombs. He's predicting a KO. Now, look, if Davis can survive that, I think we see a very good fight. I mean, an upset isn't out of the realm of possibility here. It all depends on which Kyrone Davis shows up. But you know what you're getting in Dirrell. Therefore, I like him to win a 12-round decision. Now, on the undercard of the Fox portion of the card, we get a peek into the future. Two teenage welterweight sensations, Jesus Ramos and Vito Melnicki Jr., both being featured in separate bouts. Mike, let's start with Jesus Ramos. He's 19 years old, 14-0 with 13 knockouts, heavy-handed southpaw puncher, the nephew of Abel Ramos, so he's got a boxing background. What are your thoughts on him?
Well, if you recall, Ramos was my PBC Prospect of the Year a few podcasts ago. As I said before, he looks a lot better than the average 19-year-old, that's for sure. He can box. He has poise beyond his years. And once again, the most obvious thing is his punching power. He's 14-0, 13 knockouts. That's just God-given, that power. He's also left-handed, as you mentioned. That doesn't hurt. That gives him a slight advantage against some guys. And as I've said, he's really fun to watch on top of everything else. So I don't know how far he's going to go, but he seems to me to have all the ingredients of a fighter who's going to do special things.
Yeah, he certainly does. And I just keep thinking, man, the welterweight division, it's the gift that just keeps on giving. You got also Vito Melnicki Jr., who is going to be in the televised opener, 18 years old, repping New Jersey. We've seen him featured on FS1, on Fox Sport pay-per-views, and now Fox, 7-0, 4 knockouts. Give us your assessment of Mielnicki.
Well, Mielnicki was an exceptional amateur fighter. He reportedly was 147-22 before he turned pro. He won all kinds of junior tournaments. He's only 18 years old, but he knows what he's doing in the ring. He has a refined skill set for such a young fighter, and he's a good athlete on top of everything else. The thing that strikes me beyond his ability is the person he seems to be. He's smart, he's mature, he's focused on his career, he's a hard worker by all accounts. On top of that, he's a very likable kid. That can help, in terms of marketing him later on. Like Ramos, we don't know how far he's going to go in this business. Tough business. A lot of prospects don't pan out, but he has a great foundation. I expect good things out of him.
Yeah, I do as well. Now, as a reminder, guys, Fox PBC Fight Night will be preceded by action on FS1 beginning at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. And in the main event, another young gun, undefeated 140-pounder Michel Rivera returns to the ring. Rivera, only 22 years old, 19-0, 12 knockouts, big favorite among boxing Twitter fans. Mike, what's your take on Michel Rivera?
I think Rivera is a little more advanced than Ramos and Mielnicki. He's a little older. He's 22. He has more fights. He's 19-0 with 12 knockouts. He's already beaten a few pretty good opponents, most recently Ladarius Miller. He's a really smooth, I want to use the word relaxed, polished boxer, but he also likes to fight, and then he hurts guys. He actually has heavy hands. Has a really good left hook. He even made that this jumped out at me. He even has made a point to learn English so he can better market himself at the next level. So this guy's thinking big. This guy's thinking really big. And I think he might get there. I like everything about this guy.
Yeah, so do I. I definitely one of my favorite up and comers in the sport. All three are. Do you have a favorite among the three? Could you make that choice?
Yeah, I'm gonna. It's kind of hard because they're still so young. But I'm gonna stick with Ramos. I think all three of them are good, fundamentally sound boxers, but Ramos has that power. He's really got serious punching power, and I think maybe that just gives him an edge over the other two guys. But I like all three guys.
Yeah, so do I.
Yeah,
but
they're all good.
Ramos is just so explosive. So I'm curious to see what he does in his 2021 debut. But it's now time to bring in this week's guest. We've been talking about young up and comers, and this man is staking his claim as the best of the bunch. In fact, some would say he's already arrived. Only 15-0, but already the WBA interim 130-pound world champion. Plus, he's the owner of Primetime Chicken in Garfield, New Jersey. Chris, Primetime Colbert. Chris, first, how are you, your family, your friends all doing during this pandemic?
I mean, we hanging in there. Can't complain. We alive. So all I can say is that we blessed. But to be honest, I don't even feel like this is a pandemic going on no more because it don't even look like nobody's respecting it anyways. But but I can't complain though. We doing great. We alive.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Now, before we get into boxing, we want to talk about food a little bit. You've got your own restaurant, Primetime Chicken.
Primetime Chicken,
Garfield, New Jersey. Yep, that's right. We saw the website. We've seen social media, the food. I mean, the menu looks amazing. What inspired you to open up a restaurant?
Nothing really inspired me. I just went on the mindset of scared money don't make no money. And somebody presented a great opportunity to me, so I took advantage of it.
Now
I'd rather invest now young and take a risk and then wait till it's too late and then my money gone.
Well, not a lot of young athletes have that mindset.
But my name is Prime Time. Deion Sanders, I learned from the best.
Love it. So the Sosa wings sound good. Do you have a favorite type that you prefer to order?
I like the Sosa wings.
There's a reason to go to Garfield.
I didn't start by liking those. Like those became my favorite over in time.
Oh.
I used to like the Sugar Ray wings.
I'm sure they're all good. And I was going to say that now there's a specific reason to go to Garfield, New Jersey. Got to try that chicken.
That's right.
Yes, sir.
Speaking of Chris, speaking of good, we all saw your performance last October against Jaime Arboleda. By all accounts, a star-making performance, spectacular knockout. Were you pleased with it?
I feel like I got the job done, but I don't give myself a 10 or A performance. I would give myself like a C.
Wow.
So you have high standards then, don't you?
Yeah, I got very high standards for myself. I just knew like it was things that I could have did to him that I didn't be able to. I don't know. My body just wasn't allowing me, and due to the injuries that I had during camp. But I'm not the type of fighter to pull out fights unless I can't walk or I can't talk.
Very good. Do you feel better now, or the injuries kind of work themselves out?
Yeah, I mean, I've been resting for a while. I've been resting since the fight. I went in the gym a couple times and sparred and beat up on a couple people, but that's just off of me being who I am. I'm prime time, so I feel like I could do that whenever I want.
Okay. Well, you showed a lot of power to go along with the speed and the skills, which obviously you have. Were you looking to make a statement in that fight, or was that just a case of how your style meshed with Arboleta's style?
Nah, I told you I was going in there to make a statement. And the statement was to win by dominant performance or win by knockout, and then that's what I did.
Sure did.
You know, we had Steven Espinoza on the show. He was raving about the performance. A lot of people in general have been raving about the performance. Do you have any idea of when you might return to the ring?
I'll be back in the ring by like June or July.
Okay.
June or July, I should be back in the ring, and then hopefully one more time after that, like November or December. Okay.
Well, you know, you've been moved pretty quickly in terms of the level of opposition. Ideally, who would you like to face next?
Say that one more time. Say that one more time.
I said you've been moved pretty quickly in terms of the level of opposition. You know,
but I don't get no respect for it though at all.
I think a lot of I understand what you're saying, but I can tell you that we've seen it for sure.
Yeah,
we've seen it,
and I appreciate you guys.
Yeah, we've definitely seen it. I think it's like, yeah, I mean it's been like this for a couple of years now. So from Jezreel Corrales and so forth. So I think a lot of people are seeing it, and the performances as well. Who would you like to face next?
To be honest, I mean I don't really pick and choose who I want to fight. I just fight whoever they put in front of me. But this young kid, Xavier Martinez, has been running his mouth. He be running his mouth a lot, and you say you want to be the best. If you want to be the best, you gotta beat the best. And I know I'm the best. So if you say you're the best, and I say I'm the best, why not make it happen?
Now, did he say something about you specifically, or is he just talking?
Oh yeah. He said him and Floyd. They said they got something about an ass beating. They got waiting for me or something like that. Something like that. It's on YouTube somewhere. He said something like that.
Wow.
But I know he don't believe that himself, because if he did, he would have took the fight.
So he's someone you're targeting.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not really targeting. I just would like to beat him up just cause, just to have a nice fun night.
We get it. The division, the 130-pound division, obviously is heating up right now. Good division. Yeah. What did you make of Oscar Valdez's knockout of Miguel Berchelt?
I think his performance is a great performance. Actually, I won't take nothing away from his performance, but the opposition, Berchelt, he's not really nothing special at all. I just think he just had power. But if you got a good boxer like obviously like a Valdez and me, Score Stevenson and guys like us, we'd have dominated him. So we'd have did the same thing. So, but he definitely did what he had to do.
Yeah. Sounds like you weren't surprised then.
Nah, I don't think Berchelt is any good anyways. I didn't see the whole fight, but I watched after because my dad was asking me. He said, "Are you gonna watch the fight today?" I said, "No, for what? He's trash."
Now, one fight that's out there for you is Gervonta Tank Davis. Is that a fight? Is that a fight you want? And how realistic do you think that is for 2021?
Of course, I want the fight, but to be honest, how realistic do I think it is for 2021? I don't think it's realistic at all. But it don't make money. It's not gonna make sense. If it don't make money, it ain't gonna make sense. Right now, that's not gonna make money. I'm not the superstar that I need to be yet in the sport of boxing like he is. And but skill wise, I'm there, and I'm over him. So, but making money wise, Al Heyman is a smart guy. He know we could both get more for that type of fight. He could make more for that type of fight. So I don't think it's realistic for 2021. But that's definitely a fight I want in the future. That's superstar versus superstar, power versus speed, and shit, the best versus the best. Why not? Let's do it.
Listening to you, I can tell you sort of you have a plan for your career, and I'm reminded of Floyd Mayweather when he started out. He was racking up wins as well, and he started to turn heads. But the star power didn't come right away. Do you see parallels between you and him that maybe you're creeping while everyone's sleeping?
In our career, I see parallels between me and him. But as a person, no, not at all.
Okay. Now, getting back to Tank, how do you see the matchup of styles between you and him playing out?
As lightning versus thunder. And we all know lightning strike and thunder make noise. He can make the noise, but I'm striking.
You mentioned that you're not quite at the superstar status. Is that just a matter of just you continue to win and that's going to happen for you?
Yeah. And it's matter and nowadays this social media shit play a big part. I'm not the type of guy to be on social media going crazy. That's not me. I don't that's just never been me.
So you got to just keep winning.
Yeah, you got to really put in work. These guys put in work with their social medias and all that. I don't. It's not really me in me. I'm gonna just keep fighting and doing what I do best and showing the world why I'm a superstar.
Got it. You were calling out Leo Santa Cruz well before he signed to fight Tank. Is that a fight you might still want, perhaps to entice others to get in the ring with you? Yeah.
Regardless of what happened in his last fight, he's still a superstar. He still did more than everybody in the weight division by winning the world titles. Four-time world champion? Yeah. And we got to respect him. Listen, it's boxing. Anybody could get caught up like that. I feel like he put up a good fight until that moment. But listen, I still would love to fight him. That's still a big name. He's still a superstar in the sport. And I'm pretty sure he's definitely going to come back and do what he got to do.
Got it. So you just mentioned that you want to fight twice. You expect to fight twice this year. If you could choose those two opponents, who would they be?
I'm not here to really choose. I don't I just
in a perfect world. Okay, gotcha. All right, Chris. Listen, once again, thanks so much for taking the time to talk to us. Always a pleasure.
Thank you. It's always a pleasure being on y'all shows and everything like that. I love y'all. People appreciate y'all supporting me and believing in me.
Fantastic.
And I'm just gonna keep doing what I do best.
We can't wait to see you back in the ring, man.
Me Definitely. Too. I think I'm gonna come with a crazy outfit this time.
Just the outfit, the hair color too, or just the outfit?
I don't know yet about the hair yet. I might do the hair, but the outfit, I know I got something planned big. I'm trying to get it done.
Okay. We can't wait. We can't wait to see it. We can't wait to see your skills back in the ring. Thanks you so much again, and all the best.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
February 27th, a statement will be made on Fox.
Establish who you are in the ring.
Anthony Dirrell.
He's got a mission.
The former two-time super middleweight world champ, Anthony Dirrell, is back with an eye on the belt. But there to shut it down is Kyrone Davis.
One of the most exciting young fighters.
A future star and a former champ show the world their worth.
Let your hands go. This is your moment.
Dirrell Davis, February 27th on Fox and the Fox Sports app.
All right, it's time for the week in review. Lots of action last Saturday, and we'll begin with PBC on Showtime and the return of Adrien, the Problem Broner. First fight back in over 2 years. Broner won a unanimous decision over the unheralded Gervonta Santiago. Mike, what were your thoughts on Broner's performance?
I thought it was so-so, which probably should be expected after, a 2+ year layoff. If I'm going to be honest, let's put it this way. That version of Broner that we saw on Saturday probably isn't a threat to guys like Josh Taylor, Jose Ramirez, and Regis Prograis right now. I think he's still stuck in this mode of not throwing punches or enough punches for whatever reason. I don't fully understand that, but that's sort of where he's at. We don't have to cite CompuBox numbers, which might have been off in this fight, to see that he didn't throw a lot of punches. He really wasn't very active. He threw his jab and he threw, power punches here and there, although he did pick up his pace a little in the second half of the fight. Maybe he was shaking off rust after that layoff. The bottom line for me, though, is, okay, he's back. He won for the first time since 2017. Now he needs to get right back in the gym ASAP because he's got a lot of work to do if he hopes to regain even some of the status he had as, earlier in his career.
Yeah. I think we only saw brief flashes of that on Saturday night. In fact, there were quite a few people who thought Santiago deserved the victory, but all three judges had Broner winning. Did you agree with their decision?
I thought it was a close fight that could have gone either way. I had it 114, 113 for Santiago, but the same score the other way would have been fine with me. One judge had it 17-10, which is 9 rounds to 3. I don't think that's what happened in the ring. I didn't see that. Santiago did a nice job, especially going to the body in the first half of the fight. I don't think he deserved a 17-10 score for Broner. I wouldn't call the decision a robbery because I believe Broner was right there with Santiago, might have edged it out. But nine rounds to 3 is problematic in my opinion. Even 8 rounds to 4 seems a little bit off to me, but we're obviously moving in the right direction. So
yeah,
I'm okay with the fact that Broner won the fight.
Yeah, I didn't score it. I just sort of watched it, which I tend to do upon first viewing, and sort of eyeball who I think is the winner based on what I'm seeing. I thought Broner won, but it was a close fight. There are times when a huge underdog is performing better than expected, so whatever they do is sort of amplified. I didn't think Santiago landed that many clean punches, but he sure as heck threw a whole lot more. And it seemed like the punch stats were off that night as well. I think they had Broner landing no punches in the first round, which was not the case. But look, I'm sure Broner is happy to get the win, but he would much rather prefer a more emphatic victory. Where does he go from here?
Well, you mentioned this before. I saw moments or flashes of the old Broner in that fight. He and his trainer need to sort of draw that out of him now more so now that he's back. And he needs to solve that inactivity problem. It's really a big problem. Floyd Mayweather didn't throw a lot of punches late in his career, but he took almost no punches and was really accurate with the punches that he did throw. And he still threw more than Broner's throwing these days. Yeah. And Broner just isn't Mayweather. He needs to throw punches. So what level opponent should be next for Broner? I wouldn't move him too quickly, honestly. That could backfire. Assuming he fights at 140, he says he will. I believe it. Maybe he fights a guy on the – I'm not saying these guys necessarily, but guys on the level of like a Victor Postal or Ivan Baranchyk, that level fighter. He would be a good opponent for Mario Barrios. But that could be a tough fight for Broner right now, a really tough fight for Broner right now. Anyway, if I'm advising him, just take it a step at a time. He came back, got his win. Maybe a little step up in the next fight, but you don't need to fight for a title in your next fight.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think, one, he needs to get back to the gym ASAP, as you said, and try to secure another fight, for the summer. Not necessarily a big name, but let's go the Tyson Fury route, take another tune-up maybe before stepping in with the big boys. He says he's serious about, rededicating himself to the sport. Let's hope that continues. Now, on the undercard, we had an interesting heavyweight battle between Dominic Breazeale and Otto Wallin. Wallin would end up winning a clear 12-round unanimous decision. Mike, give us your thoughts on how Wallin fared.
I thought he looked good. He's just faster, more athletic, and overall just better than Breazeale, and it showed in the fight. He outboxed him for most of the fight. He landed some heavy shots here and there. Didn't take a lot in return most of the way. I guess one criticism was that Breazeale came on a little toward the end when I thought Wallin perhaps should have been in the process of breaking Breazeale down. I guess that's something that Wallin can work on. Overall, though, I think it was a nice performance by him. I think he solidified his position as a legitimate heavyweight contender.
Indeed. I agree with you. I thought he looked good for the most part, but as you mentioned, he did sort of fade toward the end there, and he spent a good portion of those latter rounds with his back against the ropes, took a few good shots. He was breathing pretty heavy, too, by the end of the fight. So while it was a solid win, I do believe he'll have to be better against the division's elite. Who would you like to see Wallin face next?
Well, I think it's got to be a contender, doesn't it? I think that's where he's at now. I'm thinking along the lines of, he's a little bit scary here, but I'm thinking along the lines of Luis Ortiz, Andy Ruiz Jr., Joseph Parker, Adam Kovnatsky, maybe Frank Sanchez, that level of heavyweight. And all these guys are badass guys. I think any of them would be a legitimate opponent for Wallin. I doubt he'll ever be on the same level as Tyson Fury or Anthony Joshua at their bests. But I really think he's a legitimate contender. And he wants to get better, which I really like. I liked what he had to say when he was interviewed after the fight. They said, "Who's next for you?" He says, "I just want to get better." I liked when he said that. I'm really interested to see how his career plays out. I think he's good and he's a likable guy. So I'm going to follow him closely.
Yeah. One person you didn't mention who I'd love to see him against is Robert Helenius. Helenius may fight Adam Konavsky in a rematch, but the winner of that fight, if that does happen. But I feel like that's a perfect match.
That's
for
perfect.
Wallin.
Yeah.
But I also like the Luis Ortiz fight that you mentioned. It's a nice step up. It's a pretty big step up. But look, either way, the arrow is pointing up for Otto Wallin. Now, in the Showtime TV opener, former lightweight world champion Robert Easter Jr. returned to the ring for the first time since October 2019. He won a clear 12-round unanimous decision over Ryan Martin. Mike, assess Easter's performance for us.
Good performance. Love his jab. Just love his jab, which I think is one of the better jabs in the game. I would have liked to see him pick up the pace and break Martin down in the second half of the fight, which I think he probably could have done. But I'm quibbling a little bit because I think he controlled that fight from beginning to end. The jab was the key. I think it threw Martin just completely off his game from beginning to end. Yeah. Whatever his game was supposed to be, he didn't have the best night of his career, but it was definitely a good night for Easter. I think that was a nice step for him.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. That jab really is something else, and he was very disciplined throughout the fight. And Easter typically likes to go to wars, so to see him fight a disciplined fight from rounds 1 to round 12 was nice. However, I'm with you. I think that perhaps next time he can sort of step it up in the latter rounds, take some chances, and try and break his guy down and get him out of there. Look, he has a lot of tools. He looked very strong at 140. I love the weight for him, and at 30 years old, he's smack dab in the prime of his career. Who would you like to see Easter face next?
Well, one possibility is Broner. Another possibility is Barrios, which that's actually an interesting concept. I would say anybody except Taylor, Ramirez, and Prograis right now. I think he's at a level just below them at the moment. But having said that, if I were him, I certainly wouldn't pass up a shot at those guys because he's definitely good enough to be competitive with anyone at that weight, anyone. For now, though, I could see him in the ring with the guys that I mentioned earlier, maybe like a Maurice Hooker or Rancis Barthélemy or Batyar Akhmedov. There's a lot of names out there that I think he's the big names. I think he's ready for any of these guys.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And look, I mean, he hadn't fought in over a year as well. So for him to put on that kind of performance tells me that there's a lot of potential for Robert Easter at 140 pounds. But you nailed the name I'm thinking of, Mario Barrios. I love that fight. Hopefully by the end of the year. Subriel Matias is another good name. But either way, the 140-pound division is starting to heat up. All the divisions in boxing, it seems like, are starting to heat up. And one of those divisions we saw last weekend, 130 pounds, the crowning of a new WBC World Super Featherweight Champion. Oscar Valdez upset Miguel Berchelt in what's an early candidate for knockout of the year, flattened Berchelt in the 10th round, dropped him 3 times altogether to take his WBC strap away from him. Mike, were you surprised by the outcome?
Well, I was one of those fools who had bought into Berchelt as one of the best fighters in the world. I say that mostly facetiously because obviously he's pretty good. I knew he could be hit, and he wasn't the quickest guy in the world, but he'd been so dominating for quite a long time against good opposition. So yes, I was surprised that he was dominated to that extent, especially since Valdez didn't look that great in his past few fights. Valdez just tore Berchelt apart. He was just too fast and too athletic. And maybe people forgot that he could punch too. He's a big puncher.
Big puncher.
Also he and Eddie Reynoso, his new trainer, came up with a good game plan and he executed it perfectly. It was like a career-defining kind of victory. It's an incredible performance. Kudos to him. That was a great win.
Absolutely. And I think it was a perfect storm. You have a good boxer who's faster than his opponent. Then you add on Berchelt's technical, deficiencies. His struggles to make weight and perhaps not having ever been in the ring with the kind of fighter that Valdez was. And, he got taken to school by the better boxer who, as you said, also had the better game plan with the right team. Who should Valdez fight next?
Pick a title holder. Obviously, he's proved he's ready for anybody. Valdez versus Gervonta Davis would be incredible if they could make it. I don't know if they can make that fight, but man, oh man, would I love to see that fight. Joseph Diaz, if he gets his act together. Jamel Herring, if he beats Carl Frampton, if he fights and beats Carl Frampton, I guess they rescheduled that. Valdez himself mentioned Shakur Stevenson, who's not a title holder in that division. Love that fight. Leo Santa Cruz, I don't know, any of the top guys at 130. Valdez has arrived. Any of these guys work.
Yeah, absolutely. And here's one name you didn't mention who they could make in a fight I like, and that's Shakur Stevenson. I mean, they're both tied to the same platform. Yeah. Valdez called them out after. Shakur said, bring it on. But we know that's not quite how things work in boxing. That said, I think it's a fairly easy fight to make. I would hope that occurs sometime in 2021. Now, a reminder, you guys, I'm still in first place in our prediction league, sitting pretty at 6-1 to Mike's 5-2. We'll be back in a moment.
February 27th, a statement will be made on Fox.
Establish who you are in the ring.
Anthony Dirrell.
He's got a mission.
The former two-time super middleweight world champ, Anthony Dirrell, is back with an eye on the belt. But there to shut it down is Kyrone Davis.
One of the most exciting young fighters.
A future star and a former champ show the world their worth.
Let your hands go. This is your moment.
Dirrell Davis, February 27th on Fox and the Fox Sports app.
It's time for Mike and I to go toe-to-toe. Now, every week we go back and forth over a topic or two. And this week, we're going to examine the ABC, Association of Boxing Commissions, Unified Rules of Boxing. Now, just a note, state commissions are not required to follow all of these rules. Some do amend them. And some of these rules we agree with, some we don't. But no matter what side you're on, it's worth asking if these rules still make sense here in 2021. So let's start with the first one. No standing A count. Now, that's when the referee stops the action and counts to 8 while the supposed hurt fighter is still standing, not when he's been knocked down. During that count, the referee can determine if the boxer should continue. Mike, yay or nay on standing A count? No standing A count. I
support no standing A count. The reason is because I want to leave the result in the hands of the boxers, not the referee. If a fighter is hurt, he has to either go down, at which point he'd get a count, or he has to fight his way out of it, which we see happen all the time. Obviously, a referee can and should step in to save a fighter when he's too hurt to continue, but that would signal the end of the fight, not just a break in the action. So I'm a supporter of no standing A count.
I'm with you. Look, if a fighter is out on his feet, stop the fight, But if he's not, he's just hurt, you risk taking the advantage away from the fighter who has hurt him. And he may be on the verge of a stoppage win. So I 100% agree with you regarding that. And I think that's a great rule. Now, let's move on to the next rule, the 3 knockdown rule. For those of you who remember Mike Tyson's Punch Out, that's when the fighter gets dropped 3 times in one round. They're automatically considered knocked out and suffer a loss. How do you feel about this rule, Mike?
I support no 3 knockdown rule. The fight, I like the rule for this reason. Again, I want to leave it up to the fighters. That's sort of what it comes down to. A fighter can go down 3 or more times in a round, recover, and win. The classic example is the first fight between Archie Moore and Yvonne Dirrell. Moore went down 3 times in the first round and came back to stop Dirrell. That's the classic. If you haven't seen that fight, go on to YouTube and watch it because it's an absolute classic, one of the all-time classics. The idea is to determine when a fighter is too hurt to continue, regardless of whether he goes down or not. That's almost not relevant.
Yeah, I agree with you. And the fight I was thinking about was Juan Manuel Marquez versus Manny Pacquiao. Their first encounter where Marquez was dropped 3 times in that first round and then came back to win a majority of the rounds. A lot of people thought he won that fight. Imagine if Marquez had been stopped in 1 round. I mean, we wouldn't have ever seen Pacquiao Marquez 2, 3, right. Of course, 4. Would have changed the whole course of boxing history if that rule was in place. So no, I'm a strong supporter of the no 3 knockdown rule. Our next rule, only the referee can stop the fight. Now, this means that the decision to stop the fight is entirely up to the referee. Mike, yay or nay?
I'm not crazy about this rule, unless we're talking literally. I'll explain. Under the rule, technically, a trainer can't stop a fight by throwing in the towel. I was at a fight. I remember Arthur Mercani ignored a towel thrown in by Yuri Foreman's corner. in his fight against Miguel Cotto at Yankee Stadium, which in my opinion was indefensible. I don't care what the rule is. No one knows a fighter better than his trainer. That was the rule used in that fight, though. So Mercanti can say he was following the rules. Yes, the referee technically must signal the end of the fight, but he shouldn't be the sole arbiter. The fighter, the corner, even the commission, I think in some cases, and yes, the referee should have the authority to end a fight. The fighter's safety is the most important thing.
Right. I tend to agree with you. My only concern is, we've seen instances where a corner continues to send out a fighter when they should be throwing in the towel. And so I guess my fear then is, who gets the final say on that? If a corner is insistent,
can stop it anytime he wants.
Right. So, but you're saying then that they shouldn't be the only person allowed to stop the fight, or?
Right. Well, in your example, the referee can always stop it. The question is, he shouldn't be the only one who's allowed to stop it. That's all I'm saying. Because other people might have a better vantage point. They might know the fighter better, that kind of thing. Because if the ref screws up and the guy gets hurt really badly, then you have a problem.
Or have more professional experience, like a ringside doctor who might see things that
perfect.
The referee necessarily can't. So I agree with you, sir. Now, next rule, a fighter cannot be saved by the bell in any round. This means if a fighter is dropped and the bell rings, the referee must continue to count. The round ending doesn't save the fighter. Mike, what are your thoughts on this one?
I have to be honest and say I have somewhat mixed feelings on this, but I'm good with this rule. If a fighter puts an opponent down with a legal blow within the 3-minute round, the result has to be the same regardless of when it occurs, in the name of consistency, if you know what I mean. Like if he knocked him down 2 minutes into the round, then of course you count to 10. But he also knocked him down legally with 2 seconds to go. So you still have to count to 10. I hope that's understandable. And yet this is where it gets a little bit more murky for me. It does also go for the final round. If you're in the 12th round of a championship fight and a guy gets knocked down with 2 seconds to go, sound familiar? You gotta do the 10 count. He's got to get up before the count of 10, right?
Yeah.
The only policy that I have a little trouble with is this, and I waver on this, to be honest, but I believe if a fighter is knocked down with a second or two to go in the final round and he's able to get to his feet on his own, the fight should be over. And the reason I bring that up is because I know at least some jurisdictions require a fighter to be ready to fight even after the final bell. I'm not sure that I agree with that. But it just somehow doesn't sit well with me, but maybe I could be persuaded to change my mind on that.
I'm not sure I agree with that either, but I understand why. I think it leaves just too much to interpretation, and it might open the door for some more controversies. Look, I like the rule. I mean, if a fighter drops you before the bell sounds, the knockdown is in play. There absolutely should be a count. And really, it's up to the fallen fighter's benefit as well. You might be on your feet and in no condition to continue. You get saved by the bell and take unnecessary punishment. So I strongly agree with the rule. But however, that last round is kind of where things get murky. I think a fighter is able to get up and can stand up pretty much, then you probably should allow the fight or not rule it a knockdown, a knockout, a stoppage. You should probably just let the fight end where it is. But if you're a referee and you're in there, you've got two fighters in there, and I score a blow that at any other point in time, where if you saw a fighter getting up, looking the way the guy looked, you would call it a knockout. I understand why you might want to do that, because it kind of robs the other fighter of their victory. I don't know. It's a conundrum.
Yeah, that's a tough one. It really is. And I go back and forth, but overall, I think the rule's fine.
Right. Now, last but not least, a fight is official after 4 rounds, which means if anything happens after 4 rounds, let's say an accidental cut or something where a fighter can't keep fighting, they go to the scorecards. If that were to occur prior to the completion of 4 rounds, it's a no contest. Mike, what's your take on this rule?
I'm okay with the rule. A part of me thinks it makes more sense to go 5 or 6 rounds before it's official, but I can live with 4. Look at it this way. 4 rounds is 40% of a 10-round fight and 1/3 of a 12-round fight. That's quite a bit of boxing just to throw it out the window and make it a no contest. And there are actually 4-round fights, which maybe that's one of the reasons that they settled on that number of rounds. One problem I have with this rule, it's kind of hard for me to articulate, but it could change the way a guy fights. Let's say a guy thinks he's ahead in the fight in the first 2 or 3 rounds, and then this happens. He could sort of run around. Let's say the guy who gets cut, he could sort of just run around or just make it to the end of the 4th round just to win the fight. But you got to pick some round. If in the event of an accidental headbutt, you have to end it at some point. So I mean, maybe that argument's not even worth delving into. So I think the question is just what round you want to end it after.
Yeah, I agree with you. And look, I don't love the rule because I think it's just too soon. I think it should be 1 to 6 rounds. I mean, after 4 rounds of, let's say, Floyd Mayweather versus Zab Judah or Floyd Mayweather versus Shane Mosley, nothing had been decided at that point. In fact, you could say the eventual losers were ahead. I think, 4 rounds tells you very little about how the fight is going to unfold. And I think it's unfair to be handed a loss for a performance in a 4-rounder when, you know, like you're making your pro debut. I think this is one of those rules, honestly, that has to be reviewed sooner than later. But no matter what, Mike, as you said, it's a matter of the round, and I don't know if there's any round that really works.
Yeah, I'd be interested to know what the thought process was going into that. I don't know how long it's been 4 rounds. It seems like it's been 4 rounds for a long time. So you know what? There's all these rules. There's nothing's perfect. I think you sort of try to get to the best place you possibly can, and then be willing to tweak it. That's part of the deal too, is when you see things aren't working the way they're supposed to work or the way you thought they would work, you need to allow yourself the latitude to tweak things if necessary. But I think overall, these rules that we discussed, I think they're pretty good. And I think they've been pretty well thought out. And again, people don't have to follow them. So you get different rules for different fights, which is always a weird concept to me.
Yeah, at least there's some attempt at some uniformity and to do more good than harm. And with that, we hope we did more good than harm. That's going to do it for this week's show. Again, be sure to like and subscribe to the PBC Podcast on YouTube and all the other podcast platforms. We want to thank Chris Colbert for coming by and making us all hungry for some primetime chicken. And we want to thank you guys, of course, for listening in. For myself and Mike, stay safe, and we'll be back next week for more interviews and more boxing chatter right here on the PBC Podcast.